about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So happy Thanksgiving week. A lot of you guys are getting kind of hustled and bustled and getting ready to travel and all that. I'm not. I am staying in town, and I'm so excited about it. I hate traveling on the holidays. I got to travel later in January. So for me, I'm like, I'd rather stay home, work. It's going to be busy. I am always busy with patients. I do online telemedicine, so I'm expecting a pretty busy time. I'm gonna have some family fun and football. A lot of football this weekend coming up. So I'm happy girl. I'm gonna be happy girl, especially happy girl since Dallas won. That was awesome. What a comeback! They were down 21-0, then scored right before the half, and then they just dominated second half. So we'll talk about that in a later date. We got a lot to talk about today. But I always want to kind of give you guys some tips before you travel for the holidays. Seeing that everybody and their mother has this cough, sore throat, runny nose, diarrhea, vomiting, pink eye. I mean, you know, it's. I don't want you guys getting sick. I also don't want you dealing with a lot of stress that people have when they travel, when a lot of that could be minimized. So to avoid getting sick, let's say you're flying on a plane. And by the way, I think there's going to be 82 million travelers. How many of those? Let me just look up. How many of those are going to be flying? They say, according to the FAA and the AAA, it's going to be one of the busiest Thanksgivings ever. 73 million will travel by car. 6 million will fly, which means you are going to be in airports that have been touched by millions and planes touched by millions. Bring some wipes, sanitary wipes. Remember, sanitary wipes got a bad rap a few years back saying they're making super bugs. Short term, I don't want you to get this crud that everybody's getting. So wipe down your seats on your plane. If you're going to be touching the window, wipe down that. Wipe down your tray table just in case they serve you a peanut or two or a pretzel or two as your meal. You know, you might think I'm not eating. If you're stuck on the tarmac, you're going to get hungry. So just clean off your tray table, but definitely clean off that area. Definitely have some extra wipes. Also, I always tell everybody, you know how you got the air vent, the air conditioning, and you might be like, well, I don't need air conditioning because it's cold. Put that sucker on and have it go right in front of your face. So if that air is going in front of your face when somebody's coughing and spewing, hopefully it goes away. Now, true, your cough and spew could go to somebody else, but yeah, I mean, I'm here to protect you. I mean, yeah, hopefully everybody has theirs going on, so the bugs just keep flying around and nothing ever gets into anybody's respiratory passages. So that's always important. I keep reminding you guys, do not put your medications in your, not stowaway, your stowed luggage. Bring it with you on your carry-ons. Have your medications with you. Another thing that I do is I have a fanny pack. I have gone back to the 90s, right? Yeah, can't touch this. I'm going back to my MC Hammer days, and I'm wearing my fanny pack. And the reason why is because, you know, when they say, okay, everybody get off the plane, you can't grab your purse, you can't grab whatever. But if my fanny pack's on, it's already on me. So I got my passport, I got whatever. And also then my fanny pack, I don't have to if I do need a medication or I do need a Kleenex or something, it's not up because a lot of times you got to put your purse underneath it today, you know, so I like fanny packs. I'm happy with that. I like to bring my own pillow and I bring extra pillowcases so that if my pillow gets dirty on the plane, I could swap out the pillowcase. I like to bring my own blankie, a teddy bear. Yeah, I get comfy. Well, my kids let me sleep. When they were younger, they slept on me. Now I sleep on them. But sometimes I'm next to a perfect stranger. And if he's not a firefighter or shirtless and hot, I'm going to, I'm going to have to, cuddle up against the window. So you'll bring your own pillowcases, things like that. You don't expect that you will be able to find an urgent care that's going to be open. God forbid you do, feel like you're coming down with something. So let's say you were exposed to flu and you're about to travel. You might want to talk to your doctor saying, look, I've been exposed to flu. It's in the house. I think I'm going to get it. Can I take something preventative? If there are anything preventative, I know it's hard to get a hold of people's doctors because people don't have a doctor anymore. We know who to thank for that one. But for those of you that do have a medical provider or do have access to telemedicine, that might help. They say that the aisle seats are worse to sit in than in terms of getting germs, which makes sense because people, are walking back and forth. They're coughing. They're waiting by the bathroom. Many of us can't choose our seat, but if you don't have to have a seat by the lavatory. Now, I actually prefer to sit by the toilet because I can't stand when I get up and I have to go and there's a line. So if I can jump into the bathroom quickly, I prefer that. But if you're worried about getting sick, they've done studies where they look at where people get sick and where they sit. And you would think the middle seat would be the worst, but it's not. It's the aisle seat. So that's something you need to be aware of. Hydrate. I know people don't want to drink water, so they don't have to pee on a plane. You got to hydrate. You got to eat a balanced diet. If your nasal passages are all dry and crusty, bacteria can in there. But and viruses can get in there. But if you're flowing, then it's harder for things to get in there. Road travel, be careful. Pack your patience. I understand that some of us have in-laws where, you have to be there at 2 p.m. sharp. You make it there, trust me, they would rather you be there alive and safe. Well, some might be more worried about the time. But, your I don't know, aunt is upset, whatever, just get there safely. If you could, choose a time where it's an off time to travel, do that. That's even better. Understand that if there is a hazard on the road, like we had when that car with electric batteries was on fire and you have an electric car, you might be stuck. And keep in mind, the tow truck's pretty busy. There might not be a tow truck with your name on it. So, plan ahead if you do have an electric vehicle and battery. Allow extra time. Please, speed limit. Snowstorm, definitely check your travel. We are expecting snow in some parts. Luckily not me, because I'm in Vegas. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't go away. We got a lot to talk about. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So there's been some drama as it pertains to student loans. There's been a lot of drama as it pertains to student loans. And the Department of Education is looking at a proposed rule which will reclassify professionals, including healthcare professionals, as it pertains to how much money they could borrow for student loans. And nurses have kind of gotten caught in the middle of this. God bless our nurses. They're the backbone of our healthcare system. But there's some issues here where some of these nurses are borrowing up to $200,000 for their nursing degree. And when I see what some schools are charging these nurses, I'm like, whoa. Okay, no. You cannot be forcing these young men and women to go into such financial debt and then not pay them. With the doctors, these schools got away with it because they said, well, the average doctor is going to pay off their student loan debt, so we could charge them. Yeah, in fact, students are telling me that their medical school, the amount they had to borrow was $500,000 to get their doctorate degree. And you're like, come on, man, really? This is not cool. So the Department of Education, I'm not saying this in their defense, but what's happening is just kind of like with Obamacare. All right, insurance companies charge, then you could raise your rates, we'll subsidize it. The student loan program is such that, I mean, in the olden days, only the rich people were able to afford to go to college. And so working class people couldn't go to college. So the government's like, look, you can borrow money from us. You can borrow money from us. The interest won't be as bad as other loans, but it's still going to be interest. But then, because you're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree, you'll be able to pay us back. And the government, was in the loan making business for a very, very long time. Then, about, I think it was during which Democratic primary, topics kept coming up of, okay, we got to pay off these student loans. We have to forgive the student loans that people are paying. And these kids have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Now, when I first heard that, I'm like, well, why are the colleges charging that much? Well, if a college is like, well, look, this is what we charge, and the student's like, I can't pay for it, the colleges have all these, I've seen medical schools do that too. Go, don't worry. We have a whole department that knows how to get the money to cover your education, and and then the package they come up with is hundreds of thousands of dollars. School's getting the money, but the student is getting financially raped. And they're sitting there going, well, I guess in order for me to go to school with the promise of getting a job and not getting fired if I decide not to get a COVID vaccine, I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to pay that back. And so the schools, they keep hiking up the prices, and the government says, don't worry, we'll just shell out the loans. We'll shell out the loans. So when I've been saying for years, no nurse should be spending $200,000 for their career by the way, people ask how much I borrowed. So for me to go to medical school at UNR, I borrowed $80,000. It cost me in the 90s about $20,000 a year. Now that was the bare minimum, and I waited tables. So I had worked 3 part-time jobs in undergrad because I didn't want to borrow a lot of money. And then I waited tables while I was in medical school. And then during residency, I also worked and moonlighted. So even though I only borrowed $80,000, the average medical student in the 90s did borrow more. My husband went to chiropractic school. His student loans were over $200,000. And so, but thank God I was able to pay them off because there was a job for me. We need nurses, but are there jobs for them? Are there jobs for, every physical therapist, every x-ray technician, engineer? So what's happening is these students are borrowing, getting themselves in debt. Nobody's protecting them. Now, that's not to say the professional degree designation is the right way to go, but the reason why they're doing that is, and I'm not saying this in their defense, but I'm explaining what's going on, is if a college hears, look, the lifetime amount this one person is going to be able to borrow. And by the way, banks do that. Your credit card does it. You have a limit. There's a limit. When you borrow, there's a limit. That's nothing new. What's new is the career path you choose is going to have a different amount of money that you could borrow towards. And that's can hurt nurses in the short term, because if they're getting screwed by their college and their college is demanding thousands of dollars, and these changes happen next year, they need that money to pay off that school. In the long term, if these schools are here in sorry, your nurses aren't going to get $200,000, which means you need to figure out how to give them their degree for under $100,000. The college has a choice of either going under or making nursing school affordable. So it's a tricky concept. Short term, this could be bad for nurses. Long term, if there's caps on borrowing, then the colleges are going to have to, quit lapping up the money and come up with more affordable degrees. So, the professional degree would be so based on the limits. your pharmacy, your dentistry, your veterinary medicine, chiropractors, law, because they're doctors of juris doctors, medicine, optometry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, theology. They all fall under professional degrees. But the other degrees that are not considered professional could be, and to me, they are professional, but nursing, architecture, accounting, occupational therapy, physical therapy, special ed, public health. And so obviously nurses are concerned, and I don't blame them for being concerned, because if this affects how much they could borrow, then, how do they afford the school? The graduate students can borrow up to $50,000 a year, up to $200,000 overall. But the non-quote unquote professional degrees are capped at $20,500 per year. Graduate programs limited to $100,000 overall. So, so I look at this as, I want the colleges to quit overcharging students. That's what I want. Now, I'm also anti-big government. I don't want government going in saying, you can only charge this. So if the government says, we're not going to be just shelling out money to you, that could possibly lower prices. The other issue we have is if you are paying off your student loan yourself, I think you have every right to borrow, like a bank. If I want to buy a $5 million home, the bank's not going to give it to me. I don't qualify. But if I want to buy $1 million home, I might be able to qualify. So the bank, so the government starting to use discretion of, okay, well, we want to make sure you're going to pay it back. If students were paying back their student loans, this wouldn't be happening. But students aren't. Either they can't or some won't. And now there's this pressure on taxpayers who didn't go to college to help pay off the student loans. Well, that's an issue. Now, when I went to school, I worked, I had roommates. I lived in some guy's backyard shed for one or two of my rotations. Because I didn't want to borrow extra money that I didn't have to pay. Well, now the kind of landscape is, look, we're going to get a president that's going to write off student loan debt. Biden's promising it. So, you don't want a roommate. It's okay. You need a new car. That's okay. You want to get a house? Get a house. Rent a house. And so this wouldn't be an issue if students borrowed the amount of money that they could pay back, that they were getting jobs, that they didn't need other people to pay, and it wasn't a ridiculous, exorbitant amount. Now, if there's a better idea, I am all ears, because I really don't want nurses not being able to borrow, because I'm looking at what these nursing programs are charging. They are charging more. Also, you can't just look at the cost of the tuition. These individuals, I worked while going to medical school, but that's frowned upon. Usually getting your professional degree or any of your degrees, it's really hard to work at the same time. So people need to support themselves. They need to, eat. They need their car, the transportation. So give the nurses exactly what they need, but stop overcharging them, because none of these people should be $200,000 in debt to be able to start their career helping people. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I love how the media got, don't want to use an improper term for this, but they were a little disappointed that on Friday, the Zohran Mamdani, mayor-elect of New York City, and Trump meeting was not all fireworks and grenades and all that. And it was chill. And I'm really, really glad that both of them did not give in to the drama. I think it's been ridiculous how the media, wants to promote the divide and you saw 2 people appear to want to work together. But there's some takeaways from that meeting. And there's a few things I think we learned from that. So really quickly, CNN is talking about what happened, between the two that we didn't see. So what did they talk about? Well, they talked about real estate. They talked about debating a complicated zoning code. They mulled over how to get a utility grant to bring down electricity rates. They talked about what it takes to build housing in America's largest city and how the health of the 5 boroughs hinges on the streets being safe. These are some of the topics. Actually, if Zohran Mamdani was smart, then he would pick Trump's brain about, look, how do we develop, how do we do the right? I mean, Zohran Mamdani does not have the real estate background that Trump does. So pick his brain, get ideas. And so they spoke about a few different things. And then when they went into the Oval Office, of course, Trump was not going to be standing side by side at a podium. There's a hierarchy. He is the president of the United States. He's going to sit at the Resolute desk. Mamdani has to stand next to him. And so it was, you could tell there was that, I'm the president here. Okay. But I thought they both acted extremely professional. And I'm no fan of Mamdani. And I hope that he makes sure all his constituents, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, that any of that hate that we've been seeing, stops. I know there's a lot of, I think one of the Democratic Socialist parties had a whole bunch of anti-Israel demands that they want Mamdani to do. So I'm very, very concerned about what, the next few years can bring in terms of that. However, I am impressed with Mamdani's ability to attract the youth, get enough votes to win, because not every New Yorker voted. Millions of voters did not vote for him or vote at all. But if this is what New York wants, then the New York chose, and we respect that. This is America, and it was a democratic process. But the few takeaways I got from this is one. All right, Mamdani needs Trump, and in a way, Trump needs Mamdani. The rhetoric of both of them going back and forth when New York City is, the heartbeat of capitalism. And it's that New York City is one of the biggest, most populous cities in our country. All right. Trump can't just defund it and, say, I'm done with you. Mamdani can't, have it secede from the United States. So they have to work together. And also, if Mamdani fails, he could blame Trump. He says Trump wouldn't help us. Trump let New York go. Well, Trump loves New York, so that wouldn't be a smart move. He's got family there. He's got no, and you don't want New York to fail on your watch if you're president. So Trump's got some skin in the game, and Mamdani has some skin in the game. Also, I think Mamdani is learning pretty rapidly that you can't really do socialist or Marxist or communistic type moves where you have government run this and free this if you don't have money. You need money to fund all this. And so if you don't have money to fund all this, so it's going to be on the capitalist backs in order to make socialism semi work. So I think he's realizing that, and he has to play nice. He was asked if he still thought that Trump was a fascist and despot, and he starts to hem and haw, and Trump just says, just say yes, it's easier. And so you could see that, they were joking. You could see that Trump was taking it lightly. Worse has happened to him than somebody calling him a fascist or despot. Although the other media outlets, when they got a hold of Mamdani the next day, they were like, they made him double down that he's still calling him a fascist and a despot. Well, I mean, if so, then why would you be in the same room with him if you really thought he was that cruel and oppressive? And, really, it didn't look like you guys had that. So the other thing I got from that meeting is everybody's kind of fake. They might hate each other. But they could very easily look like they're, best buddies. And Trump was very warm to him. He shook his hand. He smacked the hand. He wanted to show, because he's not a touchy-feely guy. He wanted to show that he's fine with working with somebody across the aisle, which needs to be done. You have to work with people. He's worked with Gretchen Whitmer. He's worked with John Fett. You have to work with people across the aisle because America first. And I love the idea that they were combined saying, look, we both love New Yorkers. New York first. We want New York to succeed. Okay, now we're starting to hear Americans talk as opposed to, Democrat or Republican. We don't want this divide. And, maybe, in order for, Mamdani to succeed, he's going to have to roll things back and take some advice from a conservative to help fix things up. The safety in the streets, the subways, the mental health crisis, the lack of funding. I mean, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I love New York. I want to see New York succeed. But also, Trump's not a politician. He's a businessman. So he makes deals. And his whole plan with the presidency is I'll be able to make a deal to get the hostages back, which he did. I'm working on a deal to get the Ukraine-Putin war to end. I'm making a deal to get other people to pay the ballrooms. Taxpayers don't have to. Whatever. So he needs to show people that he can work with anybody. If he could work with a killer, like killers like Hamas, and he could get them to back down. I mean, he could easily work with Mamdani. But also what I learned is Trump didn't want people to think that he's going to turn his back on New York. A lot of Jews are worried about what things are going to be like, and if anti-Semitic sentiment, is able to grow and not be as rigorously. Mamdani answered a question saying he's going to, he's not going to tolerate it. But there is, the Jewish population is very, very concerned what happens next. And Trump kind of gave that reassurance that I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep an eye on, he's mayor, but he's mayor. That's it. He's mayor. Mayor's big, but that there is still your rights are protected nationally. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. And what I like about Mamdani, if I could be complimentary, is he's not acting like a politician that's going to sit on his ass. I mean, if he wants to really work to make things affordable And we have to. Everything's ridiculous. College prices are ridiculous. Our health care is ridiculous. Our food prices are ridiculous. Cars, homes. If he could make New York cheaper in the long run and sustainable, great. Is it all a bunch of ideas? Is he, is taxing the rich, the successful way to do it? Probably not, because rich people are getting the hell out of there. They're like, I'm out. And so I think we learned a lot from that. But yeah, the rhetoric's, they're not buddies. The rhetoric's going to go back, because if he wants to appeal to his base, he's going to have to spew, despot and fascist rhetoric again. So but if he's smart, he and Trump work together. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. On the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has announced the end of their operations in the Gaza Strip today. It's a U.S.-backed humanitarian organization that announced they delivered over 187 million free meals to Gaza civilians during the mission. They also said they supplied 1.1 million packs of ready-to-use supplementary food for malnourished children, partnered with Samaritan's Purse medical teams to provide on-site care for mothers and infants, and operated dedicated distribution lanes to prioritize women, children, and the elderly. So, from what I understand, they still need help. And I'm grateful that they helped them. But we've been hearing stories that there's not, shall we say, conditions that are still safe. And one thing that we saw with Hamas is that there were certain areas where people were able to get their food and others where they weren't. And that where there was the, I kind of liken it to a Petri dish. When you would throw an antibiotic disc onto the Petri dish, the bacteria would have a very healthy distance from that antibiotic because the antibiotic killed it, and they kind of kept what they would grow, but they would grow away from that disc. Where there was that disc of safety, people were able to get food. Unfortunately, where there's not safe areas. And so, the GHF has thanked the U.S. and President Donald Trump for their support. But we are concerned that again, Israel is not occupying it. It's Hamas still runs it. How do we get people the help they need? So we'll keep you posted on that, but that's one of the headlines. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So all eyes are on the U.S. proposed Ukraine-Russia peace deal. I, more than anybody else, cannot wait to see this war that we predicted would be going on too long, should have never started, going into its fourth year by February. And we're getting closer. They say the United States proposed Russia-Ukraine peace plan has undergone some changes after negotiations in Switzerland, according to ABC News. And they are trying to make the draft proposal more acceptable to Ukraine. It was a 28-point peace plan, now has 19 points. Unsure which points were removed. My guess is it might have had to do with some of the territory that had to go back. And so U.S., European, and Ukrainian officials met in Geneva to discuss this proposal put to Kyiv. I know people were asking Trump, is he having deadlines on this? Does he? People are worried about, the amount of money we're giving to Ukraine. I'm very glad that Trump got other countries to put more skin in the game because, for them to go, yeah, the U.S. needs to help, but why don't you help more? So, now that they have to spend more money, they're a little bit more motivated to try to get the war to end. And so, being, in this, shall we say, time where we shouldn't be seeing wars and rapes and children abducted and hundreds of thousands of people, affected, millions of people affected by this. I think we can all agree, even if world peace isn't attainable, if we could end destruction and fighting, it works, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's, just stop it, give the hostages back, don't attack Israel again, get, other countries to intervene and ensure that terrorists don't take over. I mean, look what's happening with Afghanistan. So Russia invading to try to take their land back, they're not going away anytime soon. And Ukraine can last as long as America and these other countries can help. And money is, we're going to be dealing with some pretty big economic issues in 2026. The AI enthusiasm, to minimize people's labor costs is going to end up causing massive, massive layoffs. Prices, if they don't come down, it's a mess. And, Trump could only do so much. I think COVID, we're still dealing with the ramifications of COVID and some of the policies from Biden, but it's going to be a mess. And so if we could start limiting some of the expenditures that we need and prevent any more wars from happening in the area, I'm all for that. So I am in full support of us getting this war to end. Do I think Ukraine has to give up all the land Russia took? No, of course not. Russia invaded them. They should not be rewarded. No way. But Russia is not going to be easy. They're going to act like they're all buddies, but they have nothing to lose because they're buddying up with China and North Korea and Syria. But there's some progress from what we understand. So I am, pretty excited about that. Okay. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. This was crushing. Jimmy Cliff has died. Reggae singer who brought reggae to a global audience dies at the age of 81. He was just such an icon, and seeing him go, it's and his music, it's heartbreaking. His family confirmed his death in a statement today, saying with profound sadness that it occurred. He said, "I'm thankful for his family, friends, fellow artists, co-workers who have shared this journey with him. To all his fans around the world, please know that your support was his strength throughout his whole career. He really appreciated each and every fan for their love." We've been told that he had a seizure and he had pneumonia. And so they thank Dr. Cosero and the whole medical staff, extremely supportive and helpful during this difficult process. If you notice, we've had a lot of stars that have passed away recently because of pneumonia. Let's talk about pneumonia really quick. Pneumonia is an infection of the lung, and it could be viral, it could be bacterial, it could be fungal. Your ability to breathe rests on oxygen being able to have unadulterated, unfettered access to the bloodstream. And your lungs are like a tree. You got the big trunk, or your trachea, then it branches out into the bronchi, and then your bronchioles, and then you have your little alveoli, which allow the transfer of gases, the oxygen to the blood, the carbon dioxide back to the blood. And your heart takes the oxygenated blood from the lungs, pumps it throughout the body, and then when it deoxygenates it, it pumps it into the lungs, and then the process happens all over again where the blood can get oxygenated. And when somebody has an infection in the lungs, the reason why pneumonia is so serious, and it's interesting because people are like, oh, just give me a Z-Pack. It's walking pneumonia. I could still go to work. I could still go to the concert. They don't understand pneumonia. That's some serious stuff. If you're getting diagnosed with pneumonia, that's scary. And your inability to process your oxygenation correctly can cause huge ramifications. Not to mention, because the bacteria has such close, if it's a bacterial pneumonia, has such close access to the bloodstream, it's easy to go into sepsis if it's not treated properly. One of the reasons why doctors are so hard on people with antibiotics for bronchitis is we need these antibiotics to knock out bacterial pneumonia. And if you have a viral bronchitis, they don't want you to brew resistance or get tolerant to some of these medications. Now, how can you tell if you have a bronchitis versus a pneumonia? Well, it could be, pneumonia, cough, shortness of breath, chest pain, but some people with bronchitis could get the same thing. I like a chest x-ray. I think a chest x-ray can really, really help. And I also like an exam because we can hear the lungs. And if the lungs sound clear, then we can assume that it's more of a bronchitis where it's in the bronchioles, the tree trunks. But if at all you're suspecting pneumonia, you get yourself checked out immediately. 1-877-DOC-LA. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive this stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So it is cuffing season. You guys know what cuffing season is? No, I don't think it has to do with handcuffs. Well, in some cities, it might need to be because, honestly, some of the crime and the ridiculous thing people are doing. But cuffing is a term that where you have these holidays coming up, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, Valentine's, and if you're single, you just don't want to be single during that time. You're not looking for a long-term relationship, but you want to, I guess, cuff with somebody temporarily. So you're not lonely. So you feel like you have somewhere to go. And you don't feel like you're alone. I was always alone on Valentine's Day. I'd always get dumped before, right? And the funny thing is I don't even like Valentine's Day, and I don't want gifts. I don't want flowers. If flowers are expensive, they die. Leave the flowers on the beautiful bushes and let the bees, pollinate and do whatever. You don't have to buy me flowers. You don't have to do any of that. So my first Valentine, I dated before Corey, but he was the first one and the only one I've ever been with on Valentine's. And so for me, I was like, oh, I'm going to be single on Valentine's. That's why I've always hated Valentine's. It was like really the worst holiday. But with the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, I get you want to cuddle up with somebody, hold hands. And so the cuffing season alludes to people, having somebody they could spend that time with. Friends did an episode on that where, well, who am I going to kiss on New Year's? Or, well, I don't, it's Valentine's, so I got to be dating somebody. Well, you know what? Let's just make a pact. We're all single right now, so none of us will. Then everybody starts hooking up with somebody, and then, there's odd man out. But interestingly, there's been some, I guess, pushback of that, where people are saying that if you are trying to cuff with somebody, that it's sad, it's embarrassing, that to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and this was more, discussions online towards women, that it's a status symbol to be single than to have a boyfriend. Now, that's a very interesting thinking, and I get it. If you are not involved with somebody, misery seeks company. Let's make it a thing, and let's make it viral, saying, yeah, I'm going to be single, and it's going to be fun, and single is now the cool thing to do. On the other end, there are so many health benefits and financial benefits and sociological benefits and evolutionary benefits for people to be in relationships. And I worry that we are moving more towards this anti-relationship attitude. Me Too was a very important movement and very influential in terms of those who never felt like they could talk about their assault. They felt like they would be, because you did, when I was assaulted, if you said something, it almost doubled the penalty. You didn't want to relive that and be re-traumatized. And if you claimed you were, people looked at you as they didn't trust you. They thought you were faking, so you just kept quiet. And Me Too allowed you to not have to keep quiet. On the other end, because there were people that got caught lying about being Me Too'd, the dating world, and I don't blame a lot of young men, were like, last thing I want to do is to be accused of something that I didn't do. Or they wanted to hook up, and then later they turn around and say, no, I never wanted to hook up with you. It's not worth it. And when young men saw other people's lives absolutely ruined, they're like, you know what? I think I'll stay in the basement and play video games. I'm good. And that was a big push towards a lack of intimacy and a lack of, you would think that the humans want to be together. They want, and a lot of humans do. But now that it's so easy for people to access porn and other, they look at the pros and cons and they say, somebody could turn around and accuse me. And what's really frustrating is I've had women, like that woman patient, that, and I'm not blaming women per se, but if we're looking at men and their fear to where they extrapolated to all women, if they just know one woman who might have lied, they can't trust the next one they meet. When that patient lied, when I helped her that Friday night, she was banging on the glass saying, I need I'm having horrible vaginal itching and pain. Please, all the offices are closed. So I stayed late with my nurse. We did vaginal cultures, STD screen, gave her medication to help her feel better. When the insurance said she owed $40 on the visit, she tells the insurance company that I never saw her, that this was a fake claim. And when I told the insurance company, I go, did you guys pay for the vaginal culture that I did? They said, yeah. I like, okay, any other questions for me? They're like, no. But once somebody lies, now I would never consider that all patients lie. I knew she was a one-off. And then there were other patients, like we had a patient we really, really loved. And one time we got returned mail from her saying deceased. So we all panicked and we all were in mourning and we tried to call the husband and nobody would answer. And we were crying. And then a couple months later, I walk into room 2 and she's sitting there and I go, oh, I thought you were dead. She's like, what? I go, we got returned mail deceased. She goes, oh, my husband does that so he doesn't have to pay the bills. He just writes deceased on it so he doesn't have to pay bills. Like, really? So when people get wronged, I understand enough about human psyche and human behavior that there's one-offs. But a young person who is so afraid that somebody could say, I had regret and now I don't, you know what? Yeah, it was an attack. It scares them. And so we're having this growing trend where people are saying, look, single is good. Single is cool. Single's the way to go. And I worry about that. I really do. Because being trustful and intimate and close, it's amazing. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So more than 35 million adults in the United States have chronic kidney disease. Sadly, 90% of them have no idea they have it. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure are responsible for up to 2/3 of these cases. The It Takes Two initiative urges people to advocate for complete testing to help identify those with chronic kidney disease to aim to reduce the potential for long-term complications. It Takes Two is a critical health initiative highlighting the importance of this testing and early diagnosis, especially for those who are at risk. I am so grateful for our next two guests, Dr. Charles Vega, primary care physician and director of UC Irvine's program in medical education for the Latino community, and Thelma. Thelma is a 2-time kidney transplant recipient and mother of twin boys. It took her nearly a decade to discover she had kidney disease, even though she had fatigue and swelling for years. And Thelma, being here to share your story, and Dr. Vega, we are so appreciative. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Vega, we'll start with you. Talk to us about chronic kidney disease.
Well, as you know, chronic kidney disease is due to chronic malfunction of the kidneys, and unfortunately, this builds up blood pressure, builds up toxic metabolites, and causes generalized inflammation in your vasculature. Now, what that means is that it can lead over time, especially when left untreated, to a higher risk for dialysis or renal transplant. But I think it's also important for your audience to understand that it also increases your risk of heart attack and stroke. So chronic kidney disease in and of itself is offers a higher risk for heart attack and stroke. And that's why we really want to go upstream, identify it earlier before it has those negative effects either on the kidneys or the heart downstream.
Exactly. And, there are multiple groups that could be at higher risk. Talk to us about those individuals.
Yeah, so we really want to keep a lookout on our clinician side and on the patient side. So if you go to testyourkidneys.com, that's a great website for assessing your own risk for CKD or chronic kidney disease. But most of the patients in my practice, they have type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, hypertension. Those are the main risk factors that we see in the United States. But that's about 2/3. 1/3 of folks don't have diabetes or hypertension, but they do have CKD. Think about a family history. Those folks should be tested. If you have existing cardiovascular disease, those folks should be tested with both a urine test and a blood test. We're doing a good job, a fair job on getting the blood test, but a poor job in getting urine testing, at least annually, if you have diabetes or hypertension, should be tested with both a urine and a blood test.
Amen to that. Absolutely. Now, this It Takes Two campaign, pretty exciting. Talk to us about that.
I'm excited. I think it's outstanding, so I'm really happy to partner with wonderful advocates like Thelma, and as well as with industry. This is a partnership with Boehringer Ingelheim and Lilly. What we're trying to do is just promote awareness, so folks, especially if they have those at-risk conditions, go to testyourkidneys.com. It not only gives you an idea about your kidney risk, but also ways to discuss it with your clinician. And I think overall it can make a big difference because I've been in practice for nearly 30 years. I've had patients with CKD for nearly 30 years, but they don't have symptoms. They're not going to need dialysis because we caught it early. We have effective treatments, and we've between the patient's lifestyle and their interventions they've tried and the things that I can offer in terms of medications, it makes a difference over time.
Oh, thank God, absolutely. Thelma, you lived through this. You know, you're living through this, and you had symptoms. Talk to us about how you found out you had chronic kidney disease.
Thank you. Well, it took nearly a decade for me to find out that I had CKD. When I did present to my doctor with my doctor's office with the swelling and the fatigue, it was pushed off to another condition. And a decade later, I go in with flu-like symptoms, and then a dipstick test shows I have blood and protein. It's not supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And then a biopsy was done to show that I did have a rare kidney disease. But throughout that process, now I'm living with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and what we have to understand is that everything is interconnected. So I'm living with CKD, and now all of these cardiovascular, kidney, metabolic conditions as well, and it's been very overwhelming.
Oh, my gosh. And you have twins. That's wonderful. Was your kidney disease before you had your babies or after?
It was before. I was diagnosed in 1993 with a rare condition called IgA nephropathy, but in 98, once I was tested and my kidney went bad, but in 99, my sister actually had given me a living donor, and in 2011, I had a deceased donor kidney transplant. And so all of this happened before my children.
Wow. You know, you're living through this. I'm sure you have a lot of advice for people going through what you're going through. You know, what would you like to tell my listeners?
I would like to tell your listeners, anyone who is at risk for chronic kidney disease because you have the comorbidity of diabetes and high blood pressure, advocate for yourself. The partnership here is called It Takes Two because it does take you and a doctor. It takes the two tests, a blood test, and that urine test is what is key. That shows your kidney status, along if you are at risk for any cardiovascular disease. I want you all to understand that knowledge is power. Go to the testyourkidneys.com website and understand that you have to be your best advocate. I want you all to empower yourselves to become true stakeholders in your health, because it is so important to have these conversations with your doctors, because kidney disease, unfortunately, is a silent killer. Sometimes you don't have any signs or symptoms, and about time we're finding out, you're being carted off to emergency dialysis. So don't do that. Let's get ahead of this by going to a website, testyourkidneys.com, speak to your provider, and have that blood test and that urine test done, please.
Thelma, that's wonderful. You're a survivor. You know, and Dr. Vega, you're a family medicine doctor, director of UC Irvine's program in medical education for the Latino community. One thing I noticed is many Latinos were not given, because many doctors weren't bilingual, and they didn't sit down and talk to them about how to protect their kidneys. I know in the last minute or so, what advice do you give people to protect the health of their kidneys, in addition to preventing diabetes and high blood pressure, et cetera?
All right, claro y tiene razón. So we definitely see higher risks among African American, among Latino patients, in part because those risk factors aren't treated well and they lack a regular source of care. So just having a good relationship with your primary care clinician makes a big difference. And go in and ask questions. Don't be afraid to query, hey, I think I've got hypertension, right? Well, why haven't I had a urine test in the last couple of years? These are things that help me out. I mean, we all have blind spots. There's always so much to do in clinic. It can be very busy, of course. So really, I would encourage patients to be their own advocates. And for us as clinicians, keep following up. Don't let things go. You know, maybe we couldn't get to the kidney disease issue this time because we had 7 other things on our plate for a 15-minute visit, but that's where we reschedule you. Come back in 2-3 months. We're going to address it. And by the way, let's get labs beforehand so we can see if you're making progress or not.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Where can my listeners go for more information?
Testyourkidneys.com, just like that.
Thelma, Dr. Vega, mucho gusto. We really, really appreciate you both coming on. God bless, and can't wait to have you back.
Fue un placer. Gracias.
Have a great day.
You too. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. It's interesting. Poor Thelma having fatigue and swelling and it getting blown off as something else. I can't tell you how many patients tell me that same story where, it's perimenopause or it's your hormones or, you know what? I can't find anything. And maybe it's because of the way I was trained, but we were hunters. How I was trained, and I understand that's one of the reasons why, healthcare, and costs went up, because we didn't just take, something lightly. We were like, I want to make sure I'm not missing IgA nephropathy or interstitial nephritis or lupus or other things that could severely affect the kidneys. And so, when many of you have asked me how you get a doctor to listen. Now, sometimes it's on you, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You're not the trained medical professional. But to get a doctor to listen and stop in their busy day, sometimes you have to directly ask them nicely, say, look, or her, how can I be sure my kidneys are healthy? What kidney tests would you recommend I do to ensure that we're functioning? Well, we do blood tests to check your kidney function, but I like to run the 24-hour urine creatinine clearance. I'll check for 24-hour urine protein. Maybe it's because I had kidney stones, and so I've had to do them. So it's not a bad test to do. It might be a little bit pain in the butt because you got to collect your urine, but your kidneys were fine on the blood test. Say, is that, are there any other tests where I can ensure that I'm not on my way to having kidney disease? Put them on the spot. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Gosh, this cough stinks. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So for those of you getting ready for Thanksgiving, has your turkey been defrosting? Have you started thawing it out yet? Probably not. We haven't. And so I know my husband was talking about it yesterday, and I didn't pay attention because I was watching football. And then I was thinking, yeah, you're right. We got to do that early. See, I usually don't think about Thanksgiving till Wednesday night. Well, if you have a 15, 20-pound turkey, you can't defrost that on Wednesday night. So I want to just give you guys some tips with your turkey. And I know this isn't a cooking show, but it does talk about health, and I want to make sure nobody is eating raw turkey. So for those of you preparing a turkey like we are, I do like turkey. I like dark meat. I really like dark meat turkey. I used to hate it because we never had dark meat growing up, and it was this, I don't know. I told you my parents took us to Howard Johnson's, and it was this thing of white meat. And not Howard Johnson's had good pancakes, but the turkey. Oh my God! So I never liked Thanksgiving. And then finally, I'm like, "What's that?" And my husband's like, "Well, that's the pokey. That's like the thigh of the." I go, "Well, that meat's good." He goes, "That's dark meat turkey." I just never had dark meat turkey, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's now like one of my favorite meats." Next to steak and beef and chicken. So anyway, so for your turkey, one of the biggest mistakes people do is they go, well, now we need to wash off the turkey. We need to wash off the salmonella. So they have the kids hold the turkey. They use the spray and they're spraying the turkey. No. Don't be washing off your turkey. You're not going to sterilize it that way. Okay. If you want to get rid of the salmonella, you cook the sucker and you cook the sucker correctly. But if you're splashing raw turkey juice all over, now you're contaminating all the sink and the kitchen area and the table. It's just not worth it. So you don't have to. You don't wash off necessarily the turkey. Now, if the turkey is disgusting because there's all the giblets and the stuff in there, I can understand. But then don't do the spray and don't have the kids help you. Just stick it deep in the sink, cover your face. But we don't necessarily have to, per se, wash off the outside of a turkey. Now, to thaw it, the big mistake people do is they forget that they were supposed to thaw it, and so they don't thaw it in the fridge. They throw it outside. They keep it outside overnight. Do not thaw it at room temperature because parts of the turkey lower their temperature to the degree where bacteria can grow. And now you have contaminated meat while you're waiting for the rest of it to defrost. Don't be doing that. You want to defrost it and thaw it out carefully, still preventing microbes from growing on it by putting it in the refrigerator. So you need to thaw it in the refrigerator. So that's going to take more time than leaving it outside, especially if you live in Las Vegas. But under 12 pounds, it may take 3 days to thaw in the refrigerator. So for those of you going, small turkey dinner, we only have a 10-pound bird. Today's Monday. You probably need to start thawing it now. If it's a 12 to 16-pound bird, it may need 4 days. If it's a 16 to 20-pound bird, 5 days. If you have a big sucker, a 20-pound bird, it could take almost a week, which means you are overdue. Now, what can you do? If you screwed up and you said dough, then what you could do is you could run it under some warm water, or you could soak it in cool water and then just don't leave it out overnight. So there's ways you could accelerate that. Now, cooking, everybody always asks, well, how long should I cook it? So I set the oven for about 350 degrees. You could do 325 to 350, but I like to play it safe. And then for the following times you would cook it, like if it's under 12 pounds, it's about like 3.5 to 4 hours. If it's like under 12 pounds, if it's 12 to 16 pounds, you would cook that sucker for 4.5 to 5 hours. 16 to 20 pounds, 5 to 5.5 hours. Over 20 pounds, 5.5 to 6 hours. So some people say it's about 15 to 30 minutes per pound. Now, just because you're setting the oven to about 350 degrees, you need to make sure that the bird is still cooked properly, because you don't want to make everybody sick. You make people sick, then you can't host Thanksgiving, and then you have to do the traveling. If you don't want to do the traveling, you better make sure that turkey doesn't make people sick. So you got to make sure that the internal temperature is at least 165 degrees in at least 3 places. Don't just go for the little wing because it's closer to you. You got to get deep into the breast or deep into that thigh, and you stick that thermometer in there. And if it's a larger bird, some experts are saying make sure it's at least 175 degrees on the inside. I like using French onion soup and a little bit of butter. I love using French onion soup on my turkey and my birds. And sometimes I like sweet. I like to add a little bit of fruit to add that little bit of sweet. But my husband is so good at cooking, and I'm always working on the holiday that I just let him do it. And he makes a damn good turkey. And then, he likes to do the carving, and he's all happy. So he's all happy. And my son's fiance is coming over with her mom and all that. So it'll be nice. Now the dogs, we are going to be talking about tomorrow, what your dogs can and cannot eat, on the holidays and your pets. We always talk about that. My animals, we have a new adopted dog. We have a new adopted dog. Remember, it was Von Snortia Consuelo Von Chunk III. I just call her Snort. And Snort, this is going to be her first Thanksgiving with us. And the problem I'm having with the stupid dog is she's I'm starting to get the Hanukkah and Christmas presents. We have like a big menorah, and then we have like the tree skirt, and we have the stockings and all that. And so I'm starting to put the presents, and she's going into the presents. See, just to backtrack here, we had Shaky Boo, and for those of you who've been listening to the show for 16 years, Shaky Boo would pee on the tree skirt. And he loved Hanukkah time because the tree skirt is all glittery and all that, and so he could pee on it. Yeah, we have a tree skirt for a menorah. We got like this big 6-foot menorah. It's really nice. One of my patients made it for us. It was really, really cool. He's just gifted ironwork. Thank you, Jay. And so he would just pee, and then he would pee on the presents. So for years, we couldn't put presents around there. We would just have to do it the last minute. Well, he finally went to the farm, and you guys all remember that. Shaky Boo went to the farm. He was 18 and a half years old. I'm heartbroken, but I'm like, ooh, now we could celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas without anybody mucking up the tree skirt, and now I can put the presents. So one of my kids' presents comes in. I put it under the tree. I'm starting to wrap Chelsea's gifts and all that. I come home, and it is opened up and chewed up. And, I'm like, Snort. And Snort's like, and it's, it stinks. And then another thing is where we adopted her from, they never house broke her. So apparently the room where we do our dinners, she's going pee-pee house. Last night, I'm again cleaning the room, and there's poo-poo and there's pee-pee. And so I am trying to figure out how to host Thanksgiving, and I'm going to stop hosting. I'm done. I mean, we might just have to go to Howard Johnson's. Okay, so really quickly, I want to just with Thanksgiving, always ask about food allergies. Okay, now that we have all these people with food allergies, even adults now, you want to make sure you know about that. Make sure you have your temperatures down in terms of cooking. Understand that your egg and things like that can have salmonella risk. Be aware. I don't do this like I should, but be aware of recalls. And what types of foods were recalled and why. Now, I remember opening up a box of rice-a-roni, and there were worms in it. And I thought it was the vermicelli. I didn't know that I bought something that had worms in it. And luckily, I'm looking, because I remember in the 8th grade, my English teacher said she bit into a Reese's, and there was worms in the peanut butter, and I can't look at another Reese's again. So just examine the food you buy, just in case some of the stores are trying to sell last year's stuff. The 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Dali Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So some of you have been kind of, again, asking about what's going on with the student loans and the big, beautiful bill and, you know, why is there all this drama? And we spoke about that earlier, how what the Department of Education has proposed to do is start capping the amount people borrow. And unfortunately, in the short term, that could hurt many nurses and getting individuals who want to become, you know, fill professions that we really need people in, such as nursing and occupational therapy and physical therapy, et cetera. In the long term, it could start bringing down the price of schooling, making it more affordable so our young nurses and therapists don't have to be $250,000 in debt. And so one of you asked, you know, you're looking online, you're seeing tuition at $17,000 a semester for some of these schools. Why are these students borrowing $200,000? That's your question. So the $200,000 mark for a nurse, I believe, comes from those who are also needing to get through undergrad. You know, to become a nurse, there's various different nurses out there. You have your MAs, you have your LPNs, you have your RNs, you have your nurse practitioners, and your nurse practitioners are taking care of patients like doctors do. And so I believe they're all professional. I think they all deserve the status of professional degree. But the new rules are going to be looking at the maximum amount somebody can borrow per year, $25,000 versus $50,000, lifetime maximum of $100,000 or $200,000. And so I'm mixed on it, because if somebody really needs to borrow that money because they are going to an expensive school, where do they go? They can't just leave school. They committed to that school. They got to come up with the money. They need to borrow it. On the other end, why are medical students $500,000 in debt to get a doctorate? Why are nurses $200,000 in debt to get a nursing degree? Who is randomly hiking up these prices? Well, the colleges. And so, you know, with banks and other things, you know, if you have a maximum, like if I want to buy a home, you know, they will approve X amount of money for me to borrow. And I can only borrow X amount of money from that bank. I have to show collateral and all that. If you're a college student, you don't necessarily have a lot of collateral. So the student loan system is in place to help people that don't have collateral, that don't have money, to be able to get a college education. The problem is not everybody are paying back their loans. And we have a system now, we have some people that don't pay back on purpose, but we have some people that can't. They never got the job. So we have a system now where people are borrowing each single person is borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars, not able to pay it back. Something's got to give. Now, as I said before, what probably needs to be done, but I wouldn't support that because I don't like the government getting involved and I don't like the government getting, price controlling. But somebody needs to tell these colleges, nah. You're not going to financially rape students anymore. It's not going to cost $200,000 for a nurse to become a nurse. Okay, you could easily do that in under $50,000. Come on, stop this. But we don't want to overstep. We don't want the government involved. So another way to do that is tell these colleges that the gravy train is stopping. That you're not going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars per student. See, they get the money. They don't have to worry about borrowing it. They don't have to worry about getting a job. They get the money. That's why when we were talking about student loan repayment, I was suggesting that it be the colleges that paid back the $10,000 or paid down the debt. They're the ones that got the money. Why should your next door neighbor who didn't borrow money for college and didn't go to college, why should they pay? So how do you get colleges to stop overcharging for school? Don't let that money infuse into the college. So now what happens to the students? The short term, this could be horrible. If a student, is committed and assigned that they're going to pay the exorbitant rate of that school, they're going to need money to be able to pay for that schooling. But in the long run, if, the college says, well, to get your nursing degree, you're going to have to at least spend $115,000. And the student goes, sorry, I can only borrow max $100,000. They're going to have to lower the prices. Now, the other issue that we've also had, which was something that drew, and again, part of the reason why this came about is because politicians brought the taxpayers in, saying we need to buy down people's debt. If you were borrowing money from the government, paying it back, this wouldn't be an issue. But we have so many people that can't pay off their student loans. They're turning to the taxpayers going, okay, we got to pay this off. And taxpayers are like, are you kidding me? Why? Why do I have to pay for this? I paid off my student loans. Why am I paying for their student loans? Yeah, why didn't they go to a state school? Why did they go to Pepperdine? Or why did they go to Harvard? I'm paying for I went to a state school. Yeah, my kids, I had them live at home. I mean, they could have moved out if they wanted to, but they wanted to save money. So, they could have gotten a real nice apartment, put money towards their car, gone to a really, really cool, expensive school, and then the taxpayers end up paying for that. So, should there be a little bit of a checks and balance? See, before, you would get a job if you got a college degree. This wasn't an issue. Now we have all these kids getting college degrees and they don't have a job. Or they're not working in their field. I went to Red Rock to do some hiking yesterday. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, so we have this mountain range. Really beautiful, a lot of good hiking. And because we just recently had a lot of rain and some snow, the waterfalls are nice and full and the creeks are full. So it's really nice place to hike. And so one of the people at the booths, really, really cool guy, was there. We recognized him because he's one of my son's friends from college. And he's working at a booth for Red Rock. And I was like, that's great. Good for him. But then I was like, what was his major? He's not working in the career that he got his major in. He's got a great job. But if he borrowed a couple $100,000, is he going to pay that off that easily? So I'm not in support of redesignating what a nurse is and limiting what they could borrow. But I am in support of getting these colleges to stop overcharging these students and also making sure that if somebody is borrowing money, they're not using that money for iPhones, they're getting, safe roommates. They're not, I would have never had my own place. Yeah, and many of the medical students are like, I'm like, so who's your roommate? Like, oh, I don't have any. I have a house all to myself. I go, who's paying for that? The student loans. And then so it is going to be, how much can you borrow? Because if every medical student is borrowing $500,000, and we haven't even gotten to the chiropractors and the osteopaths and the nurses and the physical therapists and the pharmacists and the vets. Where's that money? When is that money going to get paid? And how's that money going to get paid? So there might need to be some caps. We just have to make sure it doesn't interrupt their schooling. And we hope that the end result are these colleges and schools not charging ridiculous amounts. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.